hoarseness. I don't know what's happening. Is it because, there are people that I've not spoken to in the room today? Bongs, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, my brother?
Very well, man. You see me referring to executive mayors as Bobongs. My name is Thamsanqa Tu, sometimes known as TT. I come from the TT hookup. I'm joining in with the current review of Central News South Africa. Today we have the pleasure of being joined by a young person who's determined to take the world into his hands and do with it what many people think that young people aren't capable of doing. We as I'm saying, we're privileged to be hosting Bongani Baloyi. Is a leader of a new political party, Xiluva, or I would normally pronounce this as Xiluva.
Yeah. Yeah.
As we delve into this conversation surrounding his provocative latest statement, about moving from the constitutional democracy to parliamentary sovereignty, and with elections drawing nearer, Xiluva is intensifying its campaign and promising a shift in the political landscape of SA. Baloyi, known for his transformative leadership in the Midvaal local municipality, proposes radical reforms, including, slashing the cabinet by half, abolishing provincial government, and redefining governance through parliamentary sovereignty. Now, Bongs, I think my first question is this to you. What is the difference, in what you're proposing between, parliamentary sovereignty and, constitutional democracy?
No, the major difference at this stage is that when Parliament passes a law, the Constitutional Court, through the judiciary, becomes a final arbiter from a challenge from someone who says, look, I do not agree or support the law that has been passed by Parliament, and we're therefore going to take it up in the Constitutional Court. So they can take up the relevant law that Parliament has approved, the substance of it, including the process of adopting that piece of legislation. And for us, we find it quite problematic. We also have observed that over the past number of years, the judiciary has actually been encroaching into a dangerous space that it should not find itself in, and also directly involving itself in politics. But beyond that, we firmly believe that when people go and vote, they are saying to those they are voting for, we want you to make the laws of this country. And we firmly believe, after our assessment, that 30 years later into our democracy, what has it yielded for Black people from a substantive economic point of view? So I will put aside the accomplishments in terms of access to infrastructure. We all agree it's better than apartheid, but do we also agree that apartheid is the benchmark? We absolutely don't agree that apartheid must be the benchmark for improvement and delivery of services to Black people. But we also think we must also evaluate and measure what Black people take home today. And the fact that millions of us are unemployed and millions of us are taking home very minuscule amounts of salaries back home, while white people are taking home something they can live with and be able to have sustain their livelihoods, does not make sense. So we firmly believe that this is not a creation of God. These are an outcome of a political system. Now, the fundamental difference and advantage when you have a parliamentary sovereignty is that when Parliament has made a law, it is final. When you want to take it up to a judiciary for a review, you can only take the process of approving that bill or that piece of legislation into law, not the substance. The role of the judiciary will be to implement and interpret the substance that Parliament has approved. And we firmly believe once you consolidate the power to make laws that cannot be challenged in Parliament as opposed to laws that can be challenged in the Constitutional Court, we therefore have consolidated power in Parliament. Now, what are we going to do with the power of consolidated in Parliament? We now have the conditions for us as Xiluva to say, now we must remove provinces as a sphere of government. Then we must reduce number of municipalities to 60 district municipalities in the country and do a number of things that will be able to achieve a particular end. So we also firmly make the bold statement that we believe that the 1992 negotiations made a fundamental error by agreeing to the constitutional democracy, which has effectively given the minorities to run the state via the judiciary. And some people argue strongly that we've been engaging, that we're actually living in a judicial democracy, in fact, with all the power rests in the judiciary to make, pronounce on the affairs of the executive and including parliament as well. And we firmly believe that it was a big mistake for us to go down that route. And 30 years later, Black people are still in a difficult and worse off situation economically, which we must remedy. And how do you remedy? The first point of departure is we must move away from the constitutional democracy to a parliamentary sovereignty and consolidate power in parliament.
Is there no way of merging the two into a harmonious relationship, between the all these spheres, the different aspects of the state itself? Why should it be that the judiciary is something seeming to be hostile to parliament and parliament hostile to the judiciary? Can they work together?
They can't work together. It's about power. When we are elected, we promise people to change their material conditions and to use the state as a mechanism to pass specific types of laws to create specific circumstances and to deliver livelihoods. So you can't share that power with judiciary. So we argue strongly that that power must fully vest only in parliament. Parliament is derived from the will of the people. It's people who elect us and go to represent them in parliament through a representative democracy. So in a representative democracy, ensure that many people are represented, they can have their say in parliament, and all of us contest to be able to change the constitution or drive whatever agenda we have the intention to. We are not hostile to the judiciary. We feel that the judiciary must implement and enforce the laws that are made and enacted by parliament. That's where we are very clear about that the judiciary must enforce the laws that are adopted by parliament. We also feel there's a big space for the judiciary to deal with the administrative actions on the state and on parliament, but not to change the laws of the country.
And Xiluva has got an ambition to reduce the cabinet size by half of what it is now. Do you believe that these changes will improve governance and accountability within the country?
Absolutely. We firmly believe that, one, we will consolidate the spending of government. We'll be able to pool resources. We'll be able to better direct the state and implement the agenda of state. We don't need the full number of cabinet that we have today. It's a complete waste for the country with the type of budget and the type of population that we have. We believe a smaller cabinet will be able to run the affairs of the country successfully and consolidate all of the areas of the state to be able to drive the type of agenda that we believe we can deliver on as Xiluva.
Dealing away with the provincial, the provincial sphere of government, reducing the cabinet size by half, and consolidating all the municipalities in the country into 60 districts. That is a significant reduction in the human capital, that is there at the service of the state or at the service of the people. Are you going to achieve, effectiveness through doing that?
We will. I think the first phase one will be to deal with the redeployment of staff, those that are at the provincial level to be seconded either at national government or either these district municipalities. And followed with that will be the additional competencies that are given that were performed by provinces that will be performed by these district municipalities, which also include the running of education and also policing as well, where specialized policing will be done and the policy will be done at a national level. And many people, you would have seen this in many, when there's various challenges in local municipalities and protests. One of the demands is education and policing. And they go to a local councillor and the councillor cannot even do anything in respect to those duties. I remember when I was a mayor, those were the very consistent challenges that we had to face. And yet we don't have the powers or the competencies as a local authority to deal with those things. Have you ever heard of citizens marching to an MEC or a premier? I've never heard of such an occurrence. So we must strengthen the sphere of government that is closest to our people. So we firmly believe that devolution is the right way to go, to consolidate all of state, to ensure that there's two spheres of government as opposed to three. The third, the sphere of government in the middle is just an absorptive and extractive sphere, which takes a lot of budget, and very minimal budget gets to where the people are. And we firmly believe that doing away with that will achieve the type of fiscal consolidation we want, and to ensure that we're adequately geared as an institution, from human resource to financial resource, to be able to achieve the type of objective that we've set ourselves as Xiluva.
And your leadership in the mid-municipality was seen, as a success story. How will you leverage this experience at the national level, to execute Xiluva's proposed reforms?
So governance is governance. I had the advantage to appreciate and understand governance, whether from a small scale, but the same principles are the same when you go to national government. So we're going to leverage on that experience. And that's why we are drawing on that experience to say, what do we need to have a functional state that is able to run its affairs and develop the lives of our people, but equally transform the lives of our people while maintaining a very strong rule of law. And that means that you must consolidate the state, and you must ensure that the functions are not duplicated elsewhere, but equally they are where they should be in running a tight, robust fiscus that's quite strong to manage what we need to do. So I firmly believe that on my experience of leadership and governance, this is the consequence of what we think we need, not what we think, what we know that the country requires at this stage, because any political party can come and make promises, but unless it deals with the fundamental hurdle, which is our constitutional democracy, nothing will happen. You'll just have parties who come to want to become the headmasters of the current system, as opposed to changing the system fundamentally and delivering economic emancipation to our people.
Would this explain your because you sound very different from from somebody who would be governing on behalf of the other political party that you used to serve. Would this be the main reason why you left that political party to join Xiluva or form Xiluva? Because
I have never.
Excuse me.
I've never changed. I've been the very same Bongani. It's just that you're getting me in small doses, and now you have access to the full Bongani. The part of the I could not continue in other parties, because I understood what the program of action required for this country is, and now we needed a platform, and we believe that the former platform which I joined a year ago was the right one. In fact, more than a year ago, it was the right one to be able to influence that platform towards this direction, and we failed. And now we realize that let's build our own platform so we can advance these ideas of ours. That's why we cannot go and join and be part of other parties, because what we represent is fundamentally different. That's why we cannot even engage with the donors of millions of money who are sponsoring all political parties, because we don't want the same thing. They want to sustain the system. We want to break the system and have a new system that will advance lives of Black people. And we've been very clear about that. Many people are shocked because they don't know me. And as I've said, they've taken me in small doses. And now you have full access to me and the ideas that I espouse and the values that I have.
Now, speaking of that, there have been speculations about a potential alliance with the MK party of Jacob Zuma. Could you shed some light on this matter, or clarify the nature of any such arrangements, if there are any, ahead of the elections?
There are no arrangements with any political party. The point that started that speculation was me saying, but upon looking at the two parties, there's very minimal ideological differences. And the fact that Xiluva started before MK and with influenced their type of ideology and where they are going, it reflects the fact that there's a change in Africans at this stage, because we want the similar type of environment to create the environment that will deliver the type of prosperity we want as Africans. So at this stage, we don't have any policy or position on coalition. We're not speaking to anybody, and we will make a decision after the elections. We don't want to entangle ourselves, and most importantly, we want to insulate ourselves from influence from money and other people with an agenda. And that's why we are struggling like we are struggling now, limping from one campaign to the next campaign. And we're excited to be about 30 days from elections, because it has been a tall order for us, and yet we persist, and yet we are here, and no one will wish us away, because we still remain with a vigor and on the ground regularly with our forces.
And how wide is your campaign really? Speaking of that, we are imagining that it can take quite a tall order, as you say. But how effective is the campaign? Are you visible throughout the country?
No, we're not visible throughout the country. We're strong in Gauteng. We've got presence in Limpopo, we've got presence in Mpumalanga, and some presence in KZN, and presence in the Free State. But everything we have is really, I mean, the bulk of our resource, which is minuscule, is in Gauteng. So I'm moving around the length and breadth of Gauteng to engage. And we're also accessing platforms like yours, which gives us access to people in the Free State and various other provinces where people engage with their content. And many South Africans who are engaging with the content we are speaking about today.
But you are essentially contesting in all provinces.
We are on the national ballot and we're on the Gauteng provincial ballot.
All right. And then, in light of your party's call for a comprehensive overhaul of governance, what are the immediate steps or priorities, should you take, victory in the elections? What are the immediate things that you guys will be implementing, to bring about the changes that you talk about?
The first one is to amend the constitution to ensure that we move away from a constitutional democracy and we go into parliamentary sovereignty, where the power to amend legislation will be vested fully in a platform where the will of the people has been expressed, which is parliament. That's the first and most important, because everything we want to do requires on this first step to be able to enable that environment. I think in a week from now, we'll be speaking about what we want to do from an economic point of view and from a law enforcement point of view, but that will be anchored and enabled by doing the first thing. And the first thing is moving away from our constitutional democracy to parliament sovereignty through the change of the constitution.
And with your call, for correcting government from the top and doing away with judicial influence in government, what measures will you implement to ensure integrity and transparency and efficacy within the highest echelons of government and leadership?
Those things do not change whether you've got a parliament sovereignty or you've got a constitutional democracy. I think the root of it is about the fact that the voters must bear the ultimate blame for voting who they vote for, because we've been voting for criminals for the longest time in our lives. And the fact that we get the same results we're getting today, the buck must actually stop with the voters. Voters must actually look across the spectrum of our politics and actually elect competent, capable leadership. And I believe that Xiluva is one of those. We will ensure that we informed by our ideology of Ubuntu and meritocracy. There's an aspect which is going to underpin all of that, which is transparency, accountability, and ensuring that people actually serve on the interests of the country and not pursuing their own individual interests. So we'll ensure that our government is one that espouses those values, not just in word, but also in deed.
And finally, what is your message to people out there, those who want to, want an alternative, or those who can be convinced of an alternative? Is your party the one for them?
Absolutely. Xiluva is the only alternative for the prospering of this nation. Many parties will speak about how they essentially want to become the prefects of the system and sustain and defend the system, while we believe that we must actually get rid of this system, because this system is designed for the subjugation of Black people. It is designed to give white people an upper hand and an influence, if not directly through parliament, directly through the judiciary. So we are being held at ransom by minorities to be able to fully advance our democracy in the lives of Black people. So we firmly believe that when you think of Xiluva is not just another party competing. We are the only alternative, coming up with an alternative system that can actually uplift the lives of our people. We firmly believe that this is what is needed to advance the lives of our people. I mean, 30 years into our democracy, we don't have any Black financial institution competing with FNB, ABSAs, and the likes. 30 years into our democracy, there's nothing competing with the retail industry, nothing competing with insurance industry, and yet we are a free and democratic government with an agenda to develop and transform the lives of our people. I think that is laughable. Now, if people want to see what we're going to do within the first 10 years of our governance, I think we will actually deliver the real democratic dividends to Black people. And part of doing so will defeat and kill this demon of apartheid, because the demon of apartheid is essentially economic. We are not within apartheid now, but in terms of the economy, are Black people worse off today or better off? I mean, look at the unemployment. What is this democracy delivered to our people? Look at the unemployment. Look at foreigners who've got more rights than us in our own country. Look at the CBDs. We must take back our country. So to take back our country, we can't do it within the current system we have. We must change that system and strengthen and locate power and consolidate power in parliament. And when you do so, and having elected, competent, capable leadership and young people who can deliver on this, you're going to see that our country is going to change. And that our country is going to change for the betterment, not of capital, not of white people, but for the majority of people in this country.
Mr. Bongani Baloyi, thank you very much for your time. We hope you are successful in your endeavors, and that we hope that more people get to hear your message. Where can you be seen? Campaigning activities, anything happening in the coming days?
Absolutely. In the coming days, I'm in Diepsloot, I'm in Strata, I'm in the Val, I'm in Enadale. So I'm moving around the province this coming week on the ground. That's where we've been living. In informal settlements, that's where you're going to find us, and in townships as well. So we're continuing and sustaining and then scaling up our campaigns in those areas.
Thank you very much. All the best.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was Bongani Baloyi of Xiluva Party, talking about the party's election campaign and what they'll be doing to get your votes. If you hear them, give them a chance. If you don't hear them, don't know who you're going to be giving your vote to. But we should be back in the next 30 minutes with MEC